All right, welcome back to another episode of Small Business Chronicles, the unscripted podcast serving as your Swiss Army knife for all things business across various industries. I'm your host, Brian Stone, and today we actually have an awesome guest that really provides a solution for a lot of people in the small business space. His name is Rory Bebbington. He's the founder and CEO of Fabric Staffing, and Rory's team is phenomenal at solving a problem that most CEOs and entrepreneurs have, and that's finding great people. The firm is actually based in the greater Los Angeles area, and they're exceptionally good at addressing a lot of the problems that people face within the business world. Whether it's rapid growth hiring or executive search, they really stick to their clear mission. And I'm excited to have a conversation. So, Rory, how are you today, man?
I'm great. Yeah, just coming back off the holidays, which was awesome. Spent time with the family, etc. But yeah, excited to chat.
Awesome. So I know you have a background in a lot of things, right? You've had multiple different businesses, small and large. So what really led you to focus on this particular problem, the problem around finding and sustaining good people?
I think it's a problem that everyone's struggled with, right? And will continue to struggle with. I mean, I don't pretend to be, the only company that can solve the problem, but I think that it's always going to be a constant problem. It always has been a constant problem. So I tend to work better with companies that are in a smaller space, that i.e. smaller companies, right? I can relate to them a little bit better. I'm a small company. The companies I've been a part of have generally been smaller and then grown to a certain level. So I understand, from a business owner's perspective, some of the challenges, firsthand what these companies go through, whether it might be, hey, I need to be profitable, and hey, we need the right people to be able to, get to a place where we're profitable. Hey, we need to be, a little bit more efficient in how we're doing things, or we need certain people to do certain jobs, or maybe, hey, sometimes we need someone to do that does a lot of different jobs, which tends to be the case. And understanding those things and understanding that, you don't want people in a small business that are just going to clock in, clock out, being that kind of person myself, my team generally laugh at me all the time because I'm always on. Well, as a business owner, you always have to be on, I would like to think that's one of the reasons clients like me as well, that they'll get a response to me, on a weekend, on a holiday. It doesn't really matter. There's no time when my phone or my email is down. I'm always up and always, generally very, very responsive to people. At least I aim to be, it's a big pet peeve when you email someone and they get back to you right away. That's just how I am. So, it's really just solving a problem for small businesses and continue to help them grow without, gouging them for huge fees every time, which we don't charge. So a lot of staffing firms charge huge fees. We don't charge huge fees, and we don't do that specifically because we want to really partner with companies and be that internal recruiting department or staffing division, whatever you want to call it. That talent division that's basically going to really partner with the CEO and the founders and the executive team to, get them the talent they need, in a time they need it at a fraction of the cost. So, yeah.
Well, and I love that you focus on the small business space because, as a small business owner myself, I mean, I can relate. I know you can, Rory. Most of the time when you're trying to type up a job description, it's just, TBD. Right? Because that's really the people you're looking for, right? And you're looking for someone that's not going to stick to whatever you put on an Indeed ad or whatever, hiring practice you put out there. It's much more complex than a lot of people realize because you wear a lot of hats if you're in a small business.
Yeah, I had this conversation with my wife's uncle over Thanksgiving. He runs a small business. He runs a printing company, successful. And he was talking to me about, how you need to, he asked me, he was like, hey, if I was to get a VP of, marketing, for example, what would I do? Wouldn't I just advertise a job and off I go? And I kind of opened his eyes a little bit. I said, you don't realize that how much work's involved in hiring that person, finding that person for you. Firstly, hiring has been and will always be an exceptionally emotional thing. I reference it a lot to buying a house. It's a very emotional thing, which is why, recruiters and real estate brokers are very, very similar. We're all brokers, we're all middlemen connecting people we connect people with people. Real estate brokers connect people with houses, but they're very emotional things. Think about all the things that could go wrong. Say, for example, I find, that right person that has the right background for my uncle, right? For my wife's uncle, has the right kind of background, has worked in the printing space for years. Right, great. On paper, looks phenomenal. Okay, that's one hurdle. How about, do they like each other? This person could look great on paper, has the right background. They just don't really get along. That's the wonderful thing about people. Everyone is different, right? And not everyone's going to like everyone else. So there's one hurdle. Hey, let's say we overcome that hurdle and they like each other. Great. All right. They like each other. Next step, you have to get them through the interview process in a timely manner. What happens if, one interview lags 2 weeks after the other? Maybe the candidate or the client, starts to think, oh, is this person really interested in me? Because there's too much time delay. Like, they're not moving that quick. So they're obviously not that interested. And, they move on to other candidates or, they move on to other roles, right? That could happen. Again, say, for example, we get through all those hurdles and there's multiple interviews that happen. So that could happen at multiple times. What happens if, at one point, the candidate says something funny to one of the hiring managers' peers or employees that they kind of rub them the wrong way. Anything can happen at that. So anything can happen when you connect people with people. There's always lots of different things that can happen throughout the process. Let's say, for example, you get all the way through the end. Hiring manager's excited. It's my uncle. He's like, yeah, you found me my VP of marketing. The VP of marketing I found him was like pumped up, loves it. God, this is the job for me. I love it. Offer comes out, candidate's like, nah, I don't like that offer, and starts being really demanding and asking for all this stuff. And then the hiring manager's like, well, even if I gave him that stuff, now I don't want to give him that stuff. Now he's rubbed me the wrong way. Or, the opposite could happen, when roles are reversed. So there's so much that happens throughout a process, from not just initially finding the person you think that you're going to end up hiring, but actually getting that person across the line is crazy. So this is why, trying to mitigate some of that stuff is huge. A lot of people don't realize that the power of what a recruiter or a true, really good recruiter actually does. It's all of that middle stuff that you think that you take for granted. Is like, but helping mitigate some of that pain and some of those quims and whims and stuff that happens, like, for example, if a hiring manager says, yeah, he didn't seem that enthusiastic during the interview, you could go back to the candidate and, the candidate's already spoken to you about that. And, the candidate's like, yeah, I really felt under the weather, or, blah, blah. So you can help mitigate some of that stuff. And that's just one example. Right. But there's a lot of that doesn't even go into time. Right. I mean, all of those steps that you talked about, think about the hours and hours that it takes to actually do that process correctly. Right. Yeah. And I'm a real estate broker, by the way. So you're speaking my language as far as the housing stuff. A lot of people think they pay for great candidates. Right. Hey, Rory, what do I pay you for? No, you pay me for time. Right. That's what you pay me for. Anyone can go and flick around LinkedIn and find some good looking people on paper. Right, anyone can do that. That's called sourcing. Not everyone can do is really take two massive egos, which generally ends up being the trend, or being the thing that happens. Where you get two massive egos, or two egos. Let's call it two people, helping mitigate some of their whims, and things that are a little silly, because everyone has some silly stuff they come up with, everyone does, and helping to mitigate those things and maybe shielding each other from some of those stupid things that they're coming out with that don't make any sense. Like, I've had some hiring managers say, well, he was 5 minutes late to the interview. I'm like, There's traffic, big deal. Get over it. You know, especially in Los Angeles. And like, he was 5 minutes late. Did he apologize? Yeah. Then not a big deal, right? Have you been 5 minutes late to something before? Yeah. Okay. But again, a simple thing. If you don't help mitigate that, that could be a reason from someone not getting another interview to getting another interview.
I think there's a lot of misconceptions out there as far as what a hiring process should and shouldn't be. I before I did real estate, I did HR, and some of the dumb rules or tests that I would see, managers or owners go through. You know what I mean? To quote unquote identify their candidate. Dumb questions, off the wall stuff. And none of that is really proven effective in doing anything other than making the person that's doing the hire feel like they're smarter than the person that's sitting across from them, right?
Yeah.
And I love that you're bringing emotion because there's definitely emotion there. So Fabric really operates as a filter, is what it sounds like. Filtering the emotion out of what you guys see on a day-to-day basis.
Yeah, definitely filter the emotion out. I mean, people at the end of the day, people hire people, right? They don't hire paper. So you could ask me for 1 million great looking resumes. At the end of the day, it doesn't really matter. You're going to hire someone you like and someone you really resonate with, and certainly someone that adds some value and a lot of value to what you're trying to do. But there's so much emotion there that's in the middle of it. And again, people hire people at the end of the day. They don't hire resumes. So people don't like it when I say that, but that's just the truth. So we act as a filter. We also really take the time to get to know people, and the types of person that's really going to resonate with that person it's like matchmaking at the end of the day. So it's fun, and you don't always get that right off the bat. Sometimes it takes a couple of cycles, but once you really know a hiring manager and once you really know a candidate, you know exactly where they're going to work and where they won't. So
love that. We do something similar at at MediaWorks. We're basically connecting guests with shows and shows with guests and stuff like that in the podcast space. I mean, it's I do the same thing in real estate. You're connecting. Really not even the houses. I mean, it's the right motivation of a seller with the right motivation for the buyer. You know what I mean? And the house is just the middle, right?
Right.
So I mean, because a lot of our listeners are independents and they're smaller, and maybe they're on their second or third hire, maybe they're on their first. I mean, I know that your company has all kinds of best practices. What I would really be curious to hear is what you think the worst practices are. I mean, what are some things that our listeners should avoid if they're actually approaching that next hire?
Well, firstly, you should always focus on the first interview being the best first impression, right? I think that a lot of people overlook this. First impressions matter. They've always mattered. They will always continue to matter. So I see a lot of people making the mistake of grilling that person in the first interview. It's like, what are you doing? Like, why would that person? The way I always think about it is whether you want to hire that person or not, you should make sure that hands down that person's going to want to work for you, because then you have the option. Right. I always say that people have decided who they want to work for and where they want to work after the first interview. They've already decided. They already know what they want to do. So I think make that first interview. You need to be selling, right? Why you're so great, why you're attracting, you're trying to attract the best talent, like who you are to work with, what do people say about you, what kind of growth plans you have for the company, what's important, why is this role is so important for you to hire, stuff like that. I think that so many people overlook it. So there's some of the things to do and avoid, right? So don't grill someone, or like, hey, here's a take-home test, or whatever it might be. Here's an assignment. Well, I haven't even spoke to anyone yet. Why am I going to do that? You should make that first interview be with the best salesperson in the company. Because again, a lot of time they don't do that. And I've seen a lot of interviews happen. No, not a knock on HR. I have a lot of friends in HR, but I see a lot of those interviews happen with HR the first round. Like, that's a terrible mistake. Why would you do that? If HR was, a good salesperson, they'd be in sales, wouldn't they? So, and if you're a smaller company, I always think the first interview should be with the CEO. The first interview for Fabric is with me. When we're hiring people internally, the first interview is with me every time.
I love that you talk about using it as an opportunity to sell, which is really casting a vision, right? Because I know I'm not going to work anywhere unless I buy into the vision and I see that the vision of the company or the CEO is large enough to fit my own personal vision within it, right? Because right off the bat, if those two are out of alignment, I don't even need to have a second conversation.
Yeah, exactly. You don't. Again, it goes back to, do you like each other, right? And do you have do you like each other first and foremost, right? And if you don't, then nothing else really matters, But if you like each other, is that vision in alignment with where I want to be and where I want to go, right? It's equally important. The other thing to consider as well, which again goes back to first impressions, reputation is everything, right? For example, if that first interview is terrible, and you've just been grilled the whole time, are you going to recommend that company or that
Absolutely not
to other people?
Absolutely not. Yeah.
You don't realize interviewing is a different way of selling, so that, even if you hire that person, you don't hire that person, what happens if a candidate comes along that you're really excited about, but you didn't realize knows one of the people you've, given a bad experience to, and, they go and ask their friend, hey, I'm really deep in conversation with XYZ company. What do you think about them? Oh, nah, screw those guys. Definitely not. They were terrible to me. They treated me really badly. And this person's really good friends. They're not going to continue. They're like, oh, damn, yeah, okay. Or even if they did continue, that would definitely drop them down from the top of their list down to, way below. So reputation's everything. I always say you can build it takes a lifetime to build a really good reputation. It takes one day to ruin it. So
well, and I had one of my mentors early on say that every day you're interviewing for your next opportunity, whether you realize it or not, right?
Yeah.
I mean, and I think that's true, for the hiring process. I know for me, oftentimes I've made hires that weren't for the position that they were interviewing for, or in the time frame that they interviewed in. Right, because part of that process is building a bench. So, is that something that you guys also coordinate with in terms of your clients that you serve? Do you help them basically identify if there's another potential position within the company that person might fill?
Oh, for sure, all the time. Yeah, and again, I'll meet with people, and be like, you'd be a really good fit for this company and this hiring manager. I think you guys would get along really, really well. Don't always get it right, but a lot of the time I do. And there used to be at my previous company, there was a sort of going joke when I would call out, this candidate for that company. He's, he or she's going to get that job, and they would. And I'm like, how the hell do you know? It's like, because I take the time to get to know my customers, right? Yeah. So all the time, I just spoke to someone before this call who I think would be a really, really good fit for one of my clients. They don't have a role open for them, but that's where the magic happens. That's the good stuff. Like, I just met someone, you'll love them, trust me. And, if they know you and they trust you and you've generally been right about that stuff, and even if you haven't, they'll be like, yeah, I'll talk to them, So that's the good stuff. I love that. I love creating roles for people where there wasn't a role.
I mean, what kind of excitement does that generate too for the candidate? You know what I mean? We're like, oh, heck yeah, I can make an impact, right? Yeah. I'm here to actually do something unique. I was in a conversation with another owner, business owner. We talked about impact a lot, and the one of the misconceptions that I think a lot of business owners have is that the younger generation of the workforce is difficult to work with or difficult to hire, or they don't want to work. I mean, it seems like every third conversation I have about business, I hear somebody say, "Oh, well, people today don't want to work," and I've just found that to be incredibly untrue. And because the reality is they actually want to make an impact. You're just really bad at identifying how they're good and how they're amazing for whatever role they're in, or you have them in the absolute wrong role.
Yeah, and also, I mean, I have often created new roles for people within Fabric, right, within my company. Whether it's because they came to me with, something that they really wanted to do, or I identify, hey, you're really, really, really good at this. Like, maybe we should pivot and put you in there. I'm like, oh my god, thank God, I didn't want to come tell you about it, but yes, that would be amazing. And then you get sometimes like, actually, I'm pretty good with what I'm doing. But I think having an open mind and realizing there's multiple roles for different people, and if you put people in roles that they're excited about, that suits their skill set, that they can then expand upon their skill set because they feel good about the role they're doing. So therefore it breeds confidence, right? So therefore when you're confident, you do better. And suddenly your weaknesses don't become weaknesses anymore. I think it's like you narrow it down to sports. A lot of people, especially when you're kids, they're so hyper-focused on focusing on your weaknesses, right? Kids in sports always, you've got to get better at that. You're not very fast. You've got to get faster. Well, why don't you focus on building their confidence first? Because if they're confident, they will play better. If they're playing better, they'll be more motivated to focus on their weaknesses. If they're more motivated to focus on their weaknesses, they know what their weaknesses are. They'll probably do them regardless of what you say anyway. So I think confidence is a huge thing, and putting people in the right positions for their skill set so they can build that confidence. Same goes to business, right? Putting people in the right positions that helps them build. They're excited about what they're doing. They enjoy what they're doing. They're good at what they're doing. Will help them, eliminate some of those weaknesses. Not say all of them, but a lot of them.
Well, the reality is, I mean, I used to teach on this in the HR space. Is that foundation, that first 90 days is critical and really sets the tone for the entirety of their working career with that company, because it's either built on success because they're given opportunities to be awesome and feel confident and be independent, or it's built on criticism. And if it's built on criticism, I mean, you're exactly right. They're going to be second guessing everything they do. They're going to be asking for reassurance all along the way, which will slow down your processes. When what I believe most business owners want is they want people that are self-starters, that are independent, and that can make decisions so that they are leveraged, and they're not going to be confident to make those decisions if you don't build the right foundation and the right role. So
and sometimes it takes more than that. For us, we give every client a 6-month guarantee on anyone they hire as standard. Because sometimes it does take longer than 90 days. I mean, when we want everyone to have a good experience, we want people to have more time to, validate people and, get people through certain, challenging times. I mean, I look at sports a lot. When one player who was amazing for one team moves to another team, they don't always hit the ground running. Actually, 80% of the time, they don't hit the ground running. Sometimes it takes a bit. Sometimes it takes a year, 12 months. I think 6 months is a really, really good time frame to kind of really figure out, like, okay, I see some improvement here. That's good. But a lot of people think, this person's just going to hit the ground running from day one. You got to lower that expectation. It's not always the case. It's okay having high expectations and expecting a lot from people, sure, but give them some settle-in time. Allow them to settle into their new role. Don't just, right, you got to hit the ground running right away. Boom. Hey, it's going to take a bit. It takes 6 months, and
everyone needs a runway, right? I mean, you can't. There's some fantastic airplanes out there, right? If you want another analogy, and they're capable of amazing things, but they've got to have the runway to get started, right?
Yeah, and allow them to do that. So, and fill them with confidence while they're doing that. Because again, if you join a new team, right, and you're being shouted at all the time, hey, pass me the ball, wow, you're rubbish. You're not going to want to pass the ball. Versus like, hey, that's okay, don't worry, next time we'll get it. It's a very simple mind shift, because you're harming yourself by doing the opposite of that.
Well, I can tell you're very passionate about what you do, Rory, and I know that we could talk for a really long time about people and connecting people with other people.
Yeah.
But I want to make sure that people know how to get a hold of you and how to reach out to to Fabric if they have a problem that they believe that you can help them solve. So, I mean, if there's a business owner that's listening to this show and they want to connect with you, what's the best way for them to actually do that?
Yeah, best way, shoot me an email, rory@fabricstaffing.com. Through the website, fabricstaffing.com. Or, we also have, my personal LinkedIn. Just search for me, Rory Bebbington. I don't think there's too many out there, so I should come up. But yeah, email is great, rory@fabricstaffing.com, or just go to the website, fabricstaffing.com, and we'll help you out.
Awesome. Well, I really appreciate the conversation. Like I said, I could talk people all day, man. And if you guys enjoyed it, which I'm sure you did, make sure that you reach out to Rory, check him out, see what he's about, and make sure that you guys join us for more episodes of Small Business Chronicles. I absolutely love small business. It's a huge part of what we do, and it's something that we find that there is a huge market for information and knowledge. And so we love connecting people with resources that can help their business. So as you guys know, this podcast is a part of the Small Business Delivered Podcast Network. So if you guys have any questions, you can check us out there. If you enjoyed this and you want to see more shows, we've got a ton of content out there for your business binging. And we are proudly produced by Titan Media Works. So thank you guys for tuning in. And until next time, remember that your business journey is a story worth telling.